That night, 10 years ago, a fire rages as soldiers wield swords amid the chaos. A tearful figure behind bars watches helplessly as a woman is burned alive, the crowd jeering and calling it the birth festival of Aldra. The king of the world. The moment marks the beginning of a revolution, but all the witness can do is watch, powerless. The same night, the witness kneels in a dark room, making a vow while calling out to their sister, Rai, Are, sister. Outside, the vast Matthew's Great Canyon stretches beneath a bright sky as a bird soars. A cloaked figure watches from above, vowing never to forgive those responsible. Nearby, a horse-drawn carriage arrives, and a group of men laugh, celebrating their job well done. They boast about the huge fortune earned for capturing just one brat, reveling in their success. Inside, a crying child lies on the floor, while the men mockingly lament the missed chance to squeeze out ransom money, calling it a waste. Suddenly, a man notices something and asks, "What's up?" Another shouts urgently, "Hey, move it! Get out of the way!" As a figure approaches swiftly, tension rising. A man smirks confidently and orders to run someone over. A powerful strike shatters the ground as a figure in armor braces, causing chaos and pain among the attackers. The carriage crashes violently, throwing men to the ground. One shouts in frustration and demands to know who the armored figure is. The armored figure stands firm, surrounded by swirling energy, while the men stare in shock. The armored figure accuses the men of kidnapping the Earl's son, demanding the child be handed over or threatening merciless retaliation. The men recognize the figure as their big bro, trembling in fear. The kidnappers rally, shouting to attack and refusing to surrender. The armored figure launches into battle, striking down foes with swift, precise blows, warning that unnecessary killing is not desired but will happen if forced. The armored figure swings a massive weapon, striking down two attackers with overwhelming force. A man stares in disbelief, recognizing the black armor and its incredible power, questioning if this could be who he suspects. The armored warrior declares he has no choice but to act. The narration reveals that among all the holy knights, only 8 have earned the title of Heretic Hunter. The armored figure is identified as one of these elite purge knights. Charging forward with deadly intent, he demands to know what the opponent will do now. The purge knight taunts the wounded man, asking if he wants to join his fallen comrades in death. The man struggles to understand the situation, questioning if the purge knight's duty is to hunt the reincarnated. The armored figure coldly orders him to leave or be killed, causing the man to stumble back in fear. The armored knight confronts a gagged, tearful captive, asking if she is the Marquis' son. Upon confirmation, he acknowledges the target as reincarnation Misumi Nagamasa and declares there will be no mistake this time. He coldly states that she must die. The armored purge knight raises his sword with fierce resolve, vowing never to allow the tragedy of that night to happen again. He declares that the reincarnated must die, determined to prevent history from repeating itself. In a lively town street, cheerful townsfolk chat about recent events. A woman asks if others heard about the bandits who were killed yesterday in Matthew's Great Canyon, while a man chuckles quietly nearby. Inside a bustling inn, conversations turn to the gruesome fate of the bandits, whose heads reportedly snapped off suddenly. One man expresses fear and decides to avoid that road for a while. A young woman named Celia scolds the grim talk, reminding everyone that traveling merchants always face danger. Celia, holding a plate, expresses her heartfelt wish for everyone to return safe and sound, including Raikkoen. Rai greets her warmly, and she calls out his name with a mix of relief and affection, highlighting the close bond they share amid the morning's lively atmosphere. A woman notices Rai heading off to work early again, commenting on the Holy Church's clerical duties being busy. Rai admits there's been more fieldwork lately. Nearby, a man teases the couple, calling them lovey-dovey and demanding an invitation to their wedding. Another woman scolds him, asking if he's drunk already. Rai's mother loudly declares that a handsome guy like Rai is wasted on her daughter, causing Celia to blush and stammer in embarrassment. Rai quietly agrees with her mother's teasing. Rai's thoughts turn inward, expressing his desire to protect the happiness of those around him. He steels himself with determination, vowing to safeguard what matters most. The scene shifts to the St. Lubao's kingdom's second city, Benetnash, showing a peaceful street and a church tower. A voice politely interrupts, saying, "Excuse me." She greets Bishop Curtis with a respectful good morning, who returns the greeting warmly. The bishop brings up the difficult task of dealing with yesterday's reincarnation, Misumi Nagamasa. He explains that by the time they found Misumi, his son had already passed away, and the ones suffering most are his parents. Rai listens solemnly, acknowledging the heavy burden the family bears. She reflects on the cruel fate of the parents discovering their beloved son was a reincarnation. The bishop, sweating nervously, confirms this tragic reality. Rai announces he has come to receive his next assignment, prompting the bishop to begin responding about that. As the weight of the situation hangs heavily in the air, he is ordered to stay on standby at headquarters today. The other Purge Knights have been sent to capture a dragon spotted at a lake in the south. The dragon is revealed to be the remains of a failed reincarnation. One of the Inquisition's research specimens died, so they dispatched 2 Purge Knights to secure a replacement. The man reading the report comments on the effort, while the knight training with sword and shield is told he has a different task. The knight trains fiercely, swinging his sword with determination. Suddenly, a woman challenges him to a duel, asking for the honor. He asks her name, and she apologizes, explaining she is a knight from a neighboring kingdom on a temporary assignment. The knight explains he has been feeling down and stuck with chores since arriving, so he decided to slack off a bit. The woman introduces herself as Yahello, a knight aspiring to become a Purge Knight. A superior praises her exceptional abilities compared to her peers. She declares it an honor to meet a holy knight like him at the training grounds and promises to give it her all. The knight asks the woman for her name again and offers to tell her if she defeats him. She accepts the challenge, and they clash swords with force. He remarks on her confidence, surprised by her boldness as their duel intensifies. A man insists he doesn't want to recruit a new Purge Knight unless necessary. Acknowledging the heavy burden and high fatality rate of the role, he asks if the other would train a candidate if she proves worthy. The other agrees, not wanting to increase the death toll. A dragon soars above a castle as a voice demands, "Not yet." The woman shouts fiercely as she attacks, but her strikes fail to land. She struggles, realizing her attacks aren't working. The man advises stopping for the day to avoid injury, showing concern for her well-being. The woman protests, insisting she can still fight despite exhaustion. She recalls swearing to become a Purge Knight after the Aldra Rebellion began 10 years ago. The rebellion, led by the reincarnation Aldra, sparked uprisings and widespread destruction. Villages were burned and many lives lost during the chaos. She remembers helplessly watching her neighboring village burn, vowing never to lose again and to become a Purge Knight someday. The man listens and acknowledges her resolve, smiling gently as he notes her village was spared. The woman reacts with surprise, gripping her sword tightly, ready to continue. A massive dragon crashes down, sending a shockwave as a young man shields a girl behind him. The girl screams in terror while the dragon's jagged teeth and spiked back loom threateningly. The man stands firm, sword drawn, facing the beast. The girl gasps, questioning the dragon's sudden appearance here. Another woman urges the young man to run, warning that fighting the dragon is reckless. He commands her to rise, insisting that if she wants to become a Purge Knight, she can't panic over a dragon. The young man charges at the dragon, sword ready, while the woman watches anxiously, asking who he is. The young man leaps into action, striking the dragon fiercely. His attack lands, causing the dragon to roar in pain and recoil. The impact shakes the nearby castle tower, dust and debris scattering as the battle intensifies. The young man recalls making a vow that night, to protect the happiness of the people from the reincarnated and never forgive them. As he stands resolute before the wounded dragon, the woman looks on in awe and confusion, asking again who he really is. Purge Knight Rai Cornwell introduces himself confidently, declaring he looks forward to seeing his opponent reach his level. A caption reveals he is ranked 7th among the Purge Knights, known as the most excellent knight. Below, a determined figure clenches a rosary, vowing that today they will catch their target for sure. The scene shifts to a cityscape under the sun as a command rings out to corner the target. The target, cloaked and agile, moves swiftly through a narrow alley, but the pursuers warn there is no escape. Soldiers below shout to look up, startled by what appears above them. The cloaked figure's face is revealed with a sinister smile as they declare themselves a reincarnation. Urging immediate reporting to the Holy Church, the soldiers react in shock and fear, recognizing the gravity of the situation. At the Holy Church headquarters, a conversation begins with a question about human taste, suggesting people prefer unevenly mixed flavors over perfectly blended ones. A man in armor looks puzzled, admitting he didn't quite catch the meaning. A woman with a confident smile leans close, teasing the man by saying she likes him best, calling him my Rai. He tries to steer the conversation back to business, asking if they can get to the point. The woman, known as the blind Saint Stella, playfully calls him a killjoy. Stella finally gets serious, assigning Purge Knight Rai Cornwell the task of eliminating a reincarnation. She reveals the target's true name is Adachi Haruka and explains that recently a thief has been causing trouble in the royal capital by targeting noble estates. Warning letters have been sent out, and this is likely the work of Adachi. Rai listens as Stella continues, mentioning a rumor spreading among the capital's guards about a strange magic trick where the thief vanishes right before their eyes and reappears far away. Soldiers witness this baffling ability firsthand. Rai narrows his eyes, realizing this must be a supernatural power. Stella confirms the Reincarnated's power causes non-human phenomena like controlling fire, flying, and reading minds, suggesting spatial teleportation as the likely ability. Rai notes no reports match Adachi's unique power. As Stella prepares to leave, Rai asks if she's leaving already. Purge Knight asserts the reincarnation must be eliminated quickly. Stella, amused, comments on his striking and uneven appearance, expressing curiosity about what will happen when he realizes his true self and looks forward to it. Rai discusses the upcoming crime in 3 days targeting a ruby at the Earl's residence on the city's southern edge, despite expectations of a heist. Adachi is a reincarnation. Rai vows not to lose sight of the target due to spatial teleportation. A woman named Rise calls out to Rai, asking to join the pursuit, but he declines training with her today. Rise urgently demands to accompany Rai, surprising him. He questions if she truly means it. Rai warns her not to underestimate the reincarnated, his expression grim as tension rises. A figure orders to go back the way they came, while a woman clenches her fist tightly, sweat dripping down her face. She insists she is not underestimating the reincarnations and understands how terrifying they can be. Despite this, she shouts that she cannot forgive the situation or herself for being powerless. Determined, she vows that if she remains weak, she won't be able to forgive herself, warning others not to get in her way. Night falls over a grand estate as guards prepare for action. Taking their positions, the day of the crime warning given by reincarnation Adachi Haruka has arrived, and the hunt for the phantom thief begins. Inside the estate, the woman focuses intently on a precious ruby displayed under glass. She declares that today, they will surely catch the phantom thief. Her gaze sharpens as she recalls that Adachi's ability is spatial teleportation, making him a formidable target. Suddenly, a cloaked figure appears, holding the ruby and shouting victory with a triumphant smile. Guards and the woman react with shock and alarm as the figure leaps toward the rooftop, clutching the stolen jewel. Commands ring out for everyone to hurry to the roof, while the thief escapes into the night. Guards spot the fleeing thief and shout to fire arrows. The thief lands on the rooftop, laughing triumphantly as arrows fly past him, barely grazing his cloak. He mocks how easy the escape was. A figure in black armor appears, announcing himself as Purge Knight Rai Cornwell and declaring his intent to capture reincarnation Adachi Haruka. The thief braces for confrontation as the knight approaches. The thief hurls a dagger at the knight, warning him not to interfere. The knight skillfully dodges and counters with swift strikes, engaging in a fierce rooftop battle. The thief attacks relentlessly, but the knight blocks and parries every blow. The thief's weapon suddenly vanishes mid-attack, leaving him shocked. The knight calmly retrieves his sword, ready to press the advantage. The thief lunges forward, clutching the stolen jewel, but the knight declares this is the end. The thief snarls in frustration, blocking the knight's strike, but suddenly vanishes in a flash. The woman on the rooftop gasps, realizing they teleported away. The knight and his companion confirm the thieves escaped, instructing to keep watch nearby. The thief's sudden disappearance shocks them, and the knight clenches his fist, vowing to remember this moment. The woman acknowledges the teleportation, frustrated but alert. The knight reflects on the difficulty of catching someone who can teleport. Realizing the thief's escape wasn't true teleportation, he understands the trick now. Watching the thief reappear nearby, the knight's gaze sharpens as he pieces together the deception. Meanwhile, the city buzzes with newsboys shouting about the failed heist, crediting the Holy Knights for their protection. A figure stands calmly by a fountain in Hausen Memorial Park, the weight of recent events lingering as the city moves on. A woman questions if a mere flyer can really lure Adachi out, noting his pride and the humiliation he must feel after his failed heist and warning letter. She's certain he'll try to reclaim what he lost. Suddenly, Adachi bursts forward with a fierce grin, charging at her. The woman struggles to wield her heavy weapon, frustrated by Adachi's dismissive attitude toward her efforts. He mocks her, splashing around as she swings wildly, unable to land a hit. Adachi taunts Rai Cornwell, mocking her arrival as he leaps toward her with a wild grin. Rai braces herself, blocking his attack with her weapon as their clash sends shockwaves through the air. He notes the strength of Rai's black helmet, frustrated by its lack of openings. Yet he smirks, confident she still doesn't understand the true power behind their sisterhood, hinting at a deeper strength beyond mere armor. The armored figure blocks a fierce attack from a wild opponent wielding a large sword, petals swirling around them. The attacker shouts a desperate command to die, but the armored figure remains calm, eyes narrowing behind the helmet. The attacker's expression shifts to shock as the armored figure watches intently. The armored figure counters with a powerful kick, sending the attacker flying backward. The attacker crashes to the ground, clutching a shield. While the armored figure advances, a nearby ally calls out in concern, rushing to the fallen attacker's side. The armored figure's presence looms ominously as the scene intensifies. The armored figure explains that the attacker's true ability is invisibility, revealing that each twin acted as a decoy to confuse them. The wounds inflicted and the stolen gem were restored after teleportation, exposing their trickery. The armored figure declares the end of the Phantom Thief game and vows to purge both twins. The attacker looks on with a mix of realization and fear, questioning the mention of twins. The armored figure declares the killing is due to the attacker being a reincarnation. The attacker pleads for mercy, explaining their theft was only to care for a sister and promising no further wrongdoing. A woman named Raisan appears, gripping her weapon tightly, watching the confrontation unfold silently as the armored figure's shadow stretches across the ground. A commanding voice orders the black-helmeted figure to step away from the sisters. Warning that this is enough, the armored figure reacts sharply, hearing the name Adachi called out with urgency. A young woman steps forward defiantly, threatening to kill the girl if the armored figure does not retreat. The armored figure, observing closely, notes there are not 2 but 3 present, acknowledging the unexpected number with a cold realization. On the day Rai lost everything to the Aldra, the narrator reveals he reincarnated as Rai's second personality. He has always stood by Rai's side, witnessing his life closely. Now, once again, he faces a dire situation as a warrior prepares to strike with a sword. The narrator feels utterly helpless, forced to watch without being able to intervene. A massive, fierce creature with a wild mane and sharp features dominates the scene, embodying the overwhelming threat. The warrior charges forward, smashing the ground with his weapon, causing debris to fly. The narrator, holding a shield, runs toward the towering beast with urgency and fear, desperate to confront the menace. The monstrous creature roars with a terrifying laugh, declaring its power as a cheat. The warrior braces for battle, while the narrator watches the chaos unfold near a dark cave entrance, the threat looming large and relentless. Gasping for breath, he pushes forward, desperate to close the distance. Suddenly, a warning cuts through the chaos. Rai, above you! The monstrous figure crashes down, shaking the ground beneath them. Rai falls, wounded and struggling to rise, while the monstrous shadow looms overhead. Urgent voices shout for him to get up and run, but he can barely move. The threat presses closer, relentless and terrifying. Despite the danger, Rai's resolve hardens. He refuses to die here, knowing he still has so much left to do. No! Echoes in his mind as he steadies himself, preparing to fight back. In a sudden burst, he lunges at the beast, clashing steel against claw. Confused, he wonders if he just moved with Rai's body. His awareness shifting as the battle intensifies, the monstrous creature snarls, caught off guard by the unexpected attack. A determined voice apologizes for borrowing Rai's body briefly. Gripping a weapon tightly, the monstrous foe snarls, dismissing the previous attack as a fluke. The warrior charges forward, shattering the ground beneath with a powerful strike, vowing to crush the enemy this time. The beast laughs wildly, unleashing a fierce blast of energy. It taunts the warrior, confident he can't stand against it. Suddenly, the foe notices something missing and demands to know where the warrior went, frustration mounting as the ground cracks beneath them. The warrior slashes swiftly, but the enemy's legs remain unscathed. He curses the foe's agility, realizing he must target the vulnerable neck instead. Concentrating, he strategizes that cutting the neck should be easier than immobilizing the legs. Eyes glowing with intense focus, the warrior activates his mind-reading cheat. He notes the foe still has stamina to keep running, but nowhere left to escape after his relentless assault. The warrior prepares to end the fight, confident his calculated rampage will corner the enemy completely. The warrior realizes all he needs now is to win a game of whack-a-mole, targeting the foe relentlessly. Even if the enemy dodges the sword, he won't be ready for the leg attacks that follow. His confident grin sharpens as he prepares to strike. The foe reacts with shock, realizing the warrior predicted his attack. Panic sets in as the enemy notices the warrior is below him, scrambling to find where he'll appear next. The warrior leaps high and strikes decisively, shouting that this is the end for Sasaki Kazuma. The enemy's eyes widen in alarm as the attack lands. Immobilized, the warrior acknowledges he can't move but feels he's fulfilled his role. He urges Rai to go forward as he summons his remaining strength. preparing for a final decisive strike. The dragon roars in agony, blood spraying as it staggers, unable to stop the bleeding draining its strength. It curses the interference, lamenting that it thought reincarnation would grant freedom to live as it pleased. Frustration boils as it demands why someone had to get in its way. The warrior shouts defiantly, declaring the people of this world are not mere objects for selfish desires. He insists their world belongs only to them, wielding his sword with fierce resolve. Two figures watch the aftermath of the battle, acknowledging the warrior has truly completed the Purge Night test with a perfect score. One remarks there is nothing to complain about, whether in resolve or strength. Inside a grand hall, a man calls out to Rai, questioning if it is really him. The scene shifts to a tense moment as the man demands Rai to wait, signaling a significant encounter is about to unfold. The armored figure is addressed as Master by a man standing beside him. The young man smiling warmly greets the armored figure, saying it's been a long time. The armored figure asks if the young man has lost some weight, to which he replies affirmatively. They stand together in a spacious hall, the atmosphere calm yet charged with familiarity. The young man is surprised as the armored figure pats his head affectionately. He calls out Master in confusion as the armored figure closes a large book. The armored figure then seriously asks if the young man is truly sure about his decision, his expression grave. The young man confidently confirms he is walking the path of a purge night and has no regrets. He thanks the armored figure, acknowledging that he has come this far because of him. The armored figure responds solemnly, saying now it's the young man's turn to be the shield protecting the weak. The armored figure turns away, acknowledging the young man's resolve with an "I see" and "all right." Then, as he walks off, he wishes the young man a happy 14th birthday. The young man watches him leave, quietly repeating Master, with a mix of emotion. Apologies echo quietly as the armored figure recalls not wanting to cause sadness. A solemn vow lingers. Despite regrets, becoming a purge knight was the only path left. The knight adjusts his helmet, steeling himself for what lies ahead. Outside a modest building, the morning sun shines as the young man notes his wound from Adachi Haruka has fully healed. Determined, he acknowledges he cannot afford to rest any longer. Inside, a cheerful woman presents a freshly baked bread, pondering breakfast options with vegetables, bacon, and cheese. The young man requests one, prompting her surprised but warm greeting. As they share breakfast, the young man apologizes for startling her and assures he must return to work to make up for lost time. She admits uncertainty about his job but expresses genuine concern for his safety, urging him to stay safe as they share a heartfelt moment. The young man quietly thanks Celia, clenching his fists with resolve. He reflects on the danger Reincarnators pose and the need to grow stronger. Outside a church tower, he meets special duty priest Curtis, exchanging morning greetings. Curtis urgently asks if the young man has orders, explaining Stella received an oracle about a Reincarnator's appearance. He requests the young man visit Stella in the garden and inquires if he knows about the Chaos cult. The young man learns the cult worships a banished god of truth and chaos, revering Reincarnators as envoys. Stella explains the Reincarnators have appeared in the cult's hideout and urges him to crush the cult, admitting the threat might be too much to handle alone and asking for backup. The young man is reassured that the plan anticipated 7 Reincarnators this time. As he steps forward, the armored figure greets him warmly, calling him my Rai, and noting his perfect timing, while Rai reacts with surprise and reverence, addressing the figure as Master. The armored man solemnly calls out to Rai. A woman in an elegant dress quietly states the names of the Purge Knights. Rai Cornwell and Aslan Aldebaran. The armored man entrusts Rai with the mission to kill the Reincarnators, emphasizing the gravity of the task. A woman asks if he means his savior, and he quietly confirms. He reflects that meeting that person is why he is still alive now. The scene shifts to a ruined village, devastated 10 years ago after the chaos of Aldra's uprisings, with a lone armored figure on horseback overlooking the destruction. The armored figure surveys the wreckage, questioning if any survivors remain. He calls the devastation cruel, blaming someone who plays recklessly with no regard for human life. From his horse, he watches a lone boy walking through the ruins. The boy, identified as Rai at 7 years old, quietly calls out to his mother and big sister. His expression is somber and weary, marked by the hardships he has endured. Rai approaches the armored figure and apologizes. The armored man silently grips his helmet, expressing regret that he did not arrive sooner to prevent the tragedy. The boy lashes out in desperation, striking the armored man and shouting why he didn't come to save them. The clang of metal echoes as the boy's fists hit the helmeted figure. He clutches his head, trembling, questioning why the rescue never came. The armored man embraces the boy tightly as the boy tearfully apologizes, overwhelmed by guilt. The destruction around them is immense, the aftermath of chaos leaving devastation in its wake. A map reveals 4 villages wiped from existence, with a major city on the brink of the same fate. The armored man reassures the boy that it's not his fault, even as the boy laments his lack of power. The boy cries out that if he had the power, he could have protected his family and others. He refuses to remain powerless, vowing to save the child no matter what, fearing the burden of guilt that will otherwise haunt him forever. The armored figure declares he will train the boy, who kneels in disbelief, asking if he can truly become stronger. The knight, Aslan Aldebaran, introduces himself as the 4th strongest knight in the country and guarantees the boy's growth. The knight demands the boy state his name if he is ready to follow him. The boy, tears streaming, stands and declares his name as Rai Cornwell. Rai begins training alongside his master, pushing himself hard through the forest trails, gasping for breath as he perseveres. The narration confirms the start of his training journey. She collapses from exhaustion, asking his master to teach him swordsmanship. The master, holding a book, questions if Rai is already tired and tells him he hasn't reached that level yet. Rai struggles to control his body, falling repeatedly, crying out that he can't stop. The master explains the essentials for swordsmanship: a strong body, sharp observation, good judgment, and knowledge gained through experience. He insists the boy must get used to running the same route every morning, shocking him with the demand. The boy trains relentlessly, chopping wood and practicing diligently, studying from books despite the difficulty. His life with the master revolves entirely around training, and though it is tough, he perseveres with a hopeful smile. The boy announces he has finished the picture book, prompting the master to praise his remarkable progress in memorizing letters. The master instructs him to take his seat for the next lesson. The boy reflects that he gained more than just physical strength, learning how to read and write, and understanding human anatomy necessary for swordsmanship. He acknowledges the many lessons his master has taught him. The master recounts the legend of the male god of truth and chaos, banished to another world for his mischief, yet still sending followers to interfere in their realm. These followers are the heretics known as the Reincarnated, who must be purged. The master's expression hardens as he emphasizes the threat posed by these enemies. The boy clenches his fist, furious as he declares these Reincarnated are responsible for destroying his family and village, marking them as his enemies. The master remains silent but resolute, telling the boy he will continue the lesson, signaling the harsh path ahead. The older man explains that the boy became too tired and fell asleep after enduring difficult tasks. Yet he is holding up well. He reflects somberly that revenge is what drives the boy forward. Gazing out a window at the moonlit sky, he wonders if he can give the boy happiness without binding him to revenge. 6 years later, the boy, now 13 years old, fiercely clashes swords with the older man during intense training. The sound of metal striking fills the air as they spar with determination. The boy seizes an opening in the older man's swing, recognizing a large gap he can exploit. The older man shouts that the boy is slacking, pushing him harder. The older man swings his sword with precision, but the boy dodges and counters swiftly. The man acknowledges the boy's solid defense, impressed by his growth and skill. The boy shouts, "Not yet." As he swings his sword, determined, the older man stands calmly, gazing over a vast landscape, reflecting that the boy has grown stronger recently. The boy sits on the grass, smiling brightly, declaring he will become a purge knight like his master. The man quietly acknowledges him by name, Rai, as they stand side by side, facing the horizon. The master warns Rai not to strive to become like him, revealing that every purge knight must walk the agonizing path of Asura, cutting down every reincarnation, even children. Rai, shocked, insists that this is wrong. The master's expression darkens as he admits the path is agonizing. Rai passionately declares that the true sin is reincarnations being born at all. The master listens silently, his face shadowed. He contemplates his unrelenting hatred toward the reincarnated, comparing it to an inferno that still burns. He questions if he has the right to stop the reincarnated, recalling his failure to save a child long ago. She asks if something is wrong, noticing the master's troubled expression. The master turns away, and Rai watches him closely. The scene shifts to armored knights preparing for the Holy Knight recruitment examination. The master explains Rai can take the exam once he turns 15 and must aim to pass. Rai reacts with surprise and determination, ready to continue their conversation later. The master ends today's training, reminding to take care of the tools. The boy reflects that in 2 years he'll be 15, hoping the master will then allow him to become a purge knight. The master resolves that Rai must not walk the agonizing path of Asura like himself. He confirms Rai is the child he picked up, while a woman named Saint Stella asks if Rai is doing well. The master acknowledges the woman's observation that he personally trains Rai in swordsmanship. She expresses hope Rai will grow strong and wishes to have Rai as her personal purge knight. The master announces he has made an exception to let Rai take the purge knight examinations early, surprising the woman. The master insists Rai must take the exam despite objections to bringing him into this world. The woman pleads with Stella to revoke it, but Stella insists Rai must take the exam and come to the right place. The master shouts that being a purge knight is the right place, reminding that Rai has already endured hell. A man shouts fiercely, questioning if they will let a 13-year-old boy walk the path of Asura. A woman silently gestures for quiet. Meanwhile, a young boy runs through a forested path, denying the accusation addressed to Knight Aslan, insisting there must be a mistake. The woman, smiling gently with a finger to her lips, tells the boy that he has been on the path for a very long time. The boy looks up in surprise as she holds a scroll in her hand, her words hanging in the air. The chapter opens with the imposing tower of the Purge Knight headquarters, introducing the title, A Peerless Warrior Who Hunts Heretics, the Purge Knight. A priest commands Rai Cornwell to undergo a trial, and Rai responds with a determined, yes. Despite his resolve, he admits feeling overwhelmed by the sudden opportunity to take the exam so soon. Rai questions if someone like him is truly worthy of this challenge, but more importantly, he reveals he has been waiting for this day. He grips his sword with resolve, declaring his intention to become a purge knight like his master. The master watches silently as Rai steels himself. Suddenly, Rai is caught in a tight, affectionate hug by a lively figure who exclaims surprise at how adorable Aslan's disciple is. The playful character declares Rai to be his type of pretty boy, much to Rai's embarrassment. A woman nearby admonishes the playful one, telling Leon to knock it off. Rai is introduced to two purge knights. Alfonso Gladstone, the third-ranked strongest knight who serves as the coachman, and Leon Godwin, the fifth-ranked fastest knight, who will decide Rai's pass or fail. Alfonso apologizes for the rough greeting, while Leon enthusiastically welcomes Rai. Rai is surprised to learn both knights outrank his master. Alfonso encourages Rai not to be nervous, and with that, they prepare to move forward. The trial is revealed. Rai must eliminate the reincarnation Sasaki Kazuma. The woman in armor admits they have almost no concrete information on him, only rumors of monstrous creatures attacking and missing merchants nearby. Rai processes the weight of the mission, realizing it must be the Reincarnators' doing. The armored woman and a cheerful companion remind him the Saint's Oracle reveals the target's name and location, but not their abilities. She asks if he will hesitate, warning that with his own hands, he will kill someone. She reflects on his resolve, affirming he has no doubts and couldn't be happier to face this challenge. He recalls it has been 5 years since he began this hunt, vowing never to forgive the Reincarnators and to hunt down every last one. That belief is what has kept him going. Suddenly, the armored woman bursts into an enthusiastic cheer, startling Rai and the coach. She warns that if Rai had hesitated even for a second, she would have cut him down on the spot, underscoring the deadly seriousness of the trial as the carriage moves through the forest. Leon Godwin and Alfonso exchange tense glances as a shadowy, spider-like monster lurks in the forest. Leon warns Rai to prepare himself. Alfonso stands alert, sensing the imminent threat. "It's coming," he states with grim certainty. The monstrous creature lunges from the right side, prompting Alfonso to shout a warning. Rai draws his sword swiftly, readying for battle. Leon and Rai brace themselves as Alfonso calls for backup, urging him to join the fight. The monstrous spider roars fiercely as it attacks. Overwhelming the group, Alfonso panics, questioning how many of these creatures there are. Rai, surprised by the monster's appearance, realizes some enemies must have the ability to summon these beasts. They dodge and counterattack, struggling to keep up with the relentless assault. Rai identifies the monster's power as a summoning-type ability. Leon confidently slashes through the creatures, mocking the ease of their current battle. Rai is shocked by how quickly the monsters vanished, realizing the fight is far from over as more enemies could appear at any moment. Leon Godwin demonstrates the overwhelming power of a purge knight, urging Rai to keep his eyes on the creatures. He explains that most summoning-type abilities cause creatures to return to their master when near death. Rai spots one and shouts, identifying it. Rai commands to follow the creature, insisting the reincarnator must be nearby. The group moves swiftly through the forest as the summoned beast growls fiercely. Leon confronts the creature with a confident, menacing smile, declaring the enemy won't escape. Leon and the summoned beast clash violently. Exchanging powerful blows, Leon asserts himself as the opponent, shouting his presence. The fight intensifies with rapid strikes and evasive maneuvers, the battle echoing through the area. Alfonso Gladstone encourages Rai to match Leon's determination, urging him to give his all. Rai charges forward, engaging the monstrous creature as it roars wildly. The forest trembles with the force of their confrontation, signaling the fierce struggle ahead. Rai races through the forest, eyes fixed on a snarling summoned creature tangled in branches above. He leaps up a steep embankment, chasing it relentlessly as the beast growls fiercely, refusing to escape. Launching himself off a cliff edge, Rai shouts for the creature to stop, his gaze tracking its frantic path. From above, he spots wreckage scattered below and wonders where the creature is headed. Approaching the wreckage, Rai discovers lifeless bodies sprawled near a destroyed carriage. Shocked, he questions the scene, realizing the carriage's destruction is no accident. Suddenly, the summoned beast leaps at him, claws ready for attack. Rai blocks the strike with his sword and shield, eyes wide with recognition. The beast, revealing a wolf-like humanoid form, accuses Rai of obstructing its plans all along. The tension escalates as the two face off, the wolfman gripping Rai's arm tightly, confirming their long-standing conflict. Rai demands if the man named Sasaki Kazuma killed the people nearby. The man grins widely, confirming he did, and remarks he didn't expect to hear his old name again. Kazuma declares he's getting a fresh start in this world, vowing no more terrible people or society, and that he'll live free from being bossed around or mocked. He boasts that with his ability, he'll take whatever he wants and erase anything in his way. Rai glares fiercely, challenging Kazuma to come at him, promising to kill him. Kazuma transforms into a monstrous form and lunges at Rai, who swiftly dodges, causing Kazuma's attack to miss. A shocked onlooker notes Kazuma disappeared in an instant. Rai lunges forward, driving his sword into the wolf-like beast's open mouth. The creature roars in pain as the blade pierces deep. Rai's eyes widen in shock as the beast's companion shouts for it to attack. The wolfman charges, forcing Rai to dodge swiftly, frustration evident as he curses the situation. She counters with a powerful strike, slashing the beast's arm, but the wolfman retaliates fiercely, knocking Rai back. The beast snarls in disbelief at Rai's unexpected strength and speed. They clash again, sword against claw, neither yielding as the battle intensifies. The wolfman's arm is severely wounded, blood spurting as Rai presses the attack. The speed of Rai's strikes overwhelms the beast, forcing it to stagger. Rai's expression reveals inner conflict as he admits he truly did not want to unleash his full power. The fight grows more desperate as Rai pushes forward. The wolfman utters the command return, and a dark, swirling energy envelopes him, pulling him back. Rai watches in stunned silence as the beast vanishes, leaving behind a trail of ominous energy. He stands alone, breath heavy, realizing the gravity of the power he just wielded. Strange, spider-like creatures suddenly appear, attacking fiercely as a man shouts in alarm, questioning what is happening. Another watches anxiously, realizing Rai might not be able to handle the threat alone. A warrior clad in dark armor contemplates the situation, suggesting they should check on Rai. The ground trembles violently as destruction unfolds nearby. Rai faces a towering, monstrous spider creature wielding multiple swords. He recognizes this as a special ability, steeling himself for the battle ahead. On the day Rai lost everything to the Aldra, a voice reveals it reincarnated as Rai's second personality. It has always stood by Rai's side, witnessing his life unfold. Now, once again, it watches as Rai faces a dire moment. The monstrous Aldra looms, its terrifying presence overwhelming. The voice admits it can do nothing but helplessly watch the destruction unfold. Rai charges forward, undeterred by the towering beast. The ground shatters beneath the Aldra's massive legs as Rai closes in, determination burning in his eyes. She shouts, declaring the monstrous Aldra his cheat. The beast laughs wildly, its jaws wide open, as Rai prepares to confront the overwhelming threat head-on. Gasping for breath, he pushes forward, desperate to close the distance. Suddenly, a warning shouts from above just as the monstrous spider creature crashes down with devastating force. Struggling to rise, he is urged to run away, but he refuses, gritting his teeth through the pain. The beast looms over him, its shadow swallowing the ground. Despite the chaos, he complains about the anticlimactic end, but the voice inside protests fiercely, refusing to let him die here. Determined, he steels himself, knowing he still has much to accomplish. In a sudden burst of strength, he clashes with the towering foe, moving with uncanny coordination. Shock flickers in his eyes as he realizes he has somehow moved in sync with Rai's body, merging wills in the heat of battle. A determined voice apologizes for borrowing Rai's body briefly. Clenching a weapon tightly, the figure charges forward. The monstrous foe snarls, dismissing the previous attack as a fluke. With a roar, it slams down, shattering the ground, vowing to crush Rai this time. The beast unleashes a fiery breath, mocking Rai's inability to stand firm. Suddenly, the enemy's gaze sharpens in confusion. The ground cracks violently, but Rai has vanished, leaving the monster furious and searching for his whereabouts. Rai strikes swiftly, slicing through the creature's legs but failing to immobilize it. Frustrated, he curses the creature's agility. He resolves to target the weak spot common to most animals, the neck, believing it shouldn't be difficult. Her eyes glow intensely as he activates his mind-reading cheat. The monster realizes Rai still has stamina to keep fighting but is trapped with nowhere left to run after the relentless assault. Rai braces himself for a relentless assault, thinking all he has to do now is win a game of whack-a-mole. Even if he dodges the sword, he won't be ready for the leg attacks that follow. His confident smirk reveals his readiness to strike. The monster is shocked as Rai predicts its attack. It curses as Rai moves below it, desperately searching for where he will appear next. The tension rises as the monster struggles to keep up. Rai leaps onto the monster's leg, launching a decisive counterattack. The monster roars, declaring this the end for Sasaki Kazuma. But Rai's strike lands with impact, shaking the beast. She suddenly finds himself immobilized, unable to move as a mysterious force holds him. A voice urges him on, saying he has fulfilled his role. Tears well in Rai's eyes as he prepares for what comes next, gripping his sword tightly. The monster screams in agony as it bleeds profusely, its strength draining rapidly. It curses Rai for interfering, lamenting that it thought it could finally live freely after reincarnating in this world. The beast struggles, realizing it can't stop the blood loss. Rai shouts fiercely, declaring that the people of this world are not mere objects to satisfy selfish desires. He insists their world belongs only to them, standing resolute despite his battered state. Two figures watch the aftermath of the battle, commenting that Rai has truly succeeded. One acknowledges Rai's perfect score on the Purge Night test, praising his resolve and strength. Rai, exhausted and tearful, listens quietly. The scene shifts to a grand building where two armored men stand inside. One commands the other to wait and calls out to Rai, asking if it is really him, signaling a new moment of recognition and tension. Rai greets his master warmly, a smile breaking through as he says it's been a long time. The master, clad in dark armor, acknowledges Rai, noting he seems to have lost some weight. Rai admits to it quietly as they stand together in a spacious hall. She is startled as a book suddenly opens in front of him, prompting him to call out to his master. The master looks serious, asking if Rai is truly certain about his decision. His gaze is intense, filled with concern. She stands firm, declaring he has no regrets about walking the path of a purge night. He thanks his master sincerely, promising to become a shield that protects the weak. The master listens quietly, pride and worry mingling in his expression. The master turns away, signaling acceptance with a simple, "All right." Then, as Rai watches, two birds perch on a branch nearby. The master wishes Rai a happy 14th birthday, and Rai calls out to him once more, a mix of respect and emotion in his voice. Apologies echo in a quiet hall bathed in light as a knight drinks solemnly, accepting a cup offered to him. He admits he never meant to cause sadness but still couldn't choose any path other than becoming a purge knight, pulling on his helmet with resolve. Outside a peaceful building, the knight notes his wound from Adachi Haruka has healed. He steels himself, knowing he can't keep resting forever. Inside a cozy kitchen, a cheerful woman presents freshly baked bread, pondering how to prepare it with vegetables, bacon, and cheese for breakfast. The knight requests one, surprising her with his early arrival. As the knight eats soup, he apologizes for startling her. She reassures him, noting his habit of rising early, then expresses concern about his mysterious work. He admits his mother and she truly care for him, urging him to stay safe as he prepares to return to duty. Rai silently thanks Celia, his clenched fists trembling over a meal as he reflects on the danger Reincarnators pose. One mistake could cost him his life. Outside a church, he meets special duty priest Curtis, who has been waiting for him. She asks if there is an order for him, and Curtis apologizes for the early summons, instructing Rai to visit Stella immediately. He explains Stella received an oracle this morning about a reincarnator's appearance and asks if Rai knows about the chaos cult. Curtis describes the cult as wicked believers worshipping the god of truth and chaos, banished in myths, and revering reincarnators as envoys of their god. Stella, seated nearby, urges Rai to crush the cult's hideout, noting the reincarnators appeared there. She admits the task might be too much alone and requests another person join him. Stella reassures Rai that this was the plan all along, mentioning there are 7 Reincarnators this time. As Rai steps outside, his master appears, greeting him with perfect timing. Rai is stunned, calling out to his master. A stern man calls out to Rai, his voice heavy with urgency. A woman seated nearby reveals the names of the Purge Knights assigned to the mission. Rai Cornwell and Aslan Aldebaran. She entrusts Rai with the grave responsibility of eliminating the Reincarnators, her gaze unwavering. Rai turns to face the man standing before him, absorbing the weight of the task ahead. A horse-drawn carriage rattles through a rocky mountain pass. Inside, Rai sits quietly, alert and watchful. His gaze sharpens as he grips his helmet, preparing himself mentally for what lies ahead. He reflects on the 3 years since he last saw his master, recalling the day he took his oath as a Purge Knight. Despite the time passed, a distance remains between them, and guilt has held him back from seeking the man out. Yet, a mountain of unspoken words weighs on him as he finally calls out, eager to reconnect. His master commands him to review their mission once more, the target. 7 reincarnations and the secret of Chaos cult. The master recounts the Aldra revolt from 10 years ago, linking the cult to the reincarnation Aldra. Rai absorbs the gravity of the cult's threat, realizing the battle ahead will be chaotic and unpredictable. Rai and his master discuss the unprecedented challenge of facing 7 reincarnations simultaneously. The master warns that their strength is unknown and stresses the importance of vigilance and swift judgment. Rai nods firmly, steeling himself to keep his guard up as the mission begins. Rai reveals he received intelligence from Holy Knight scouts about 2 entrances to the Chaos cult's hideout. One at the front and one at the back. He suggests attacking from both sides to cause confusion among the cult's ranks. Rai volunteers to take the front entrance and leaves the back entrance to his master. The master contemplates the plan thoughtfully, then smiles warmly at Rai. Rai expresses relief and trust, saying there's nothing more reassuring than having his master by his side. The master asks if Rai has been well during their 3 years apart, and Rai answers affirmatively with a bright smile. A carriage arrives at a rocky outpost called the Donkey's Mane. Rai confirms he is living there now. The master expresses interest in meeting the people who have cared for Rai, including the Kawit's family who run the place and the other friendly customers. Rai warmly invites his master to meet everyone who has supported him. The master advises Rai to care deeply for those close to him, noting he could tell by Rai's expression how much they mean to him. Rai agrees quietly, reflecting on his wish for their happiness. The scene shifts to show the people Rai mentioned, gathered happily together, embodying the warmth and bonds Rai cherishes. The master points out that Rai could live among the people who have supported him, prompting Rai's surprised question about his master's intentions. The master cuts him off, saying they'll save that talk for later as he opens a door and steps inside. They arrive at a rocky cave entrance where the master urges Rai to stay focused, explaining they'll proceed on foot from here. Rai notes that the cult's hideout is inside the cave as the armored master signals to move forward. As they enter, the master raises a hand to halt, and a group of cult members in pointed hoods emerge, demanding to know who approaches. One cult member recognizes the master by his distinctive pitch-black armor and readies a spear. The cult members declare themselves holy knights serving the goddess of order and hope. The master commands to fire, and arrows shoot toward them as he urges Rai to move forward, both fully prepared for battle. The armored master swings his sword in a wide arc, unleashing a powerful gust that sends the cult members staggering backward in shock and pain. The force of the attack sweeps through the group, disrupting their formation and leaving them vulnerable. The master presses the assault, cutting down one cult member with a swift strike while others shout in alarm. Realizing they are under attack, the cultists rally, shouting orders to destroy the enemies of their god, but the master advances relentlessly. The cultists recoil in awe and fear as the master's overwhelming presence fills the space. His pressure described as surreal. He clashes fiercely with multiple foes, his sword ringing against their weapons as he dominates the battlefield with unmatched skill. The battle intensifies as the master and his companions strike in perfect unison, their attacks relentless and precise. One cultist remarks that the master seems oblivious to the idea of weakening with age, as they are thrown aside by his unstoppable force. Cultists panic, screaming that they can't do anything as they flee. The armored figure declares he'll finish them off and commands, "They're all yours." He slashes fiercely, cutting down enemies with precise strikes. Another armored knight leaps into action, shouting "Now!" as they charge forward to attack. The knight's spear swings swiftly, scattering cultists with a sharp swoop sound. Observing the fight, one knight notes the other's rapid growth and strength, amazed that he closed the distance instantly and took down 3 foes simultaneously. The 2 knights regroup inside a ruined building. One urges to continue despite the toll, and the other agrees. They confirm the path to the rear entrance, their footsteps echoing as they move forward. One knight calls out, "Master," sensing something. The armored master asks if something is troubling his companion. He reflects that the duty of a purge knight is always soaked in blood. He reveals his wish for the other to have another way of life, urging him to consider a different path beyond endless violence. On that day, the armored figure tells Rai he chose a path he never wanted for him. Rai asks if he means he disappointed him. The armored figure explains he wanted Rai to consider his own happiness and guide him to a life beyond revenge. Rai grips his sword tightly, declaring he will never allow himself such a life. He vows to walk the blood-stained path no matter what, fulfilling his duty as a survivor of the Aldra revolt. Suddenly, Rai calls out as debris explodes nearby. The armored figure blocks an attack, and a small icy shard rolls on the ground. Rai wonders if it is ice. They face a group of enemies wielding magic and weapons. The armored figure notes such attacks won't work on them. The enemies shout they won't allow Rai and his companion to run the place any longer and will crush them with everything they have. Rai readies himself for the fight, shouting, "Reincarnations!" The armored figure and his companion unleash a powerful combined attack, chanting, "Ultimate body and ultimate power." As they strike with overwhelming force, the armored figure commands Rai to attack while he clears a path, shouting, "Take this, and I'll clear a path." The enemies respond with a massive explosion, their magic cracking the ground beneath them. The armored figure reacts with shock as the blast erupts, shaking the battlefield violently. Rai dashes forward with incredible speed, narrowly avoiding an attack aimed at a fleeing figure. The armored figure counters with a swift strike, smashing through the enemy's defense. A massive ice projectile crashes through the area, shattering everything in its path. The attacker boasts about his enhanced ice ability, amplified fourfold by a special buff, as he laughs triumphantly and calls out to his master, asking how they liked the display. The attacker reveals his buffed wind ability as his companion conjures a powerful gust, creating a massive swirling tornado aimed at the Purge Knight. The attacker laughs, declaring this the end for the Purge Knight, who watches the assault unfold. The Purge Knight, now understanding his opponent's attack patterns, notes the reliance on large, buff strikes and recognizes this makes the enemy slow. He narrowly dodges a barrage of magical stones, preparing to counter. The Purge Knight swiftly maneuvers through the chaos, slashing through enemies and debris with precise strikes. As he dashes forward, his allies urge someone named Hyde to take cover, wishing the Lord Reincarnation luck. The Purge Knight pauses amid the destruction, noting that the Oracle predicted 7 Reincarnators, but one is missing. He calls out to everyone, sensing something amiss as he wipes smoke from his face, preparing for what comes next. The last opponent steps forward, and the other demands to know if he truly is the final one. Calmly, the newcomer asks what if he is. The armored figure declares his intent to purge him, sword raised. The challenger narrows his eyes, recalling a report about an angry knight. He suspects this must be him. Both warriors ready their weapons, the challenger shouting a fierce challenge to the wrathful swordsman. Vowing to avenge those lost, the armored knight raises his sword and shield, prepared to meet the attack head-on. The challenger calls out boldly, demanding the wrathful swordsman come at him. He vows to avenge those lost, gripping his sword tightly. The armored knight wonders silently what kind of cheat this reincarnation might possess. The armored knight braces behind his shield as the challenger lunges forward, sword aimed, determined. The challenger admits he must cut right to the truth to find out the secret. Shock flashes across his face as the knight's speed overwhelms him. The armored knight blocks a fierce strike, gritting his teeth as the challenger struggles to break through. The clash intensifies, swords and shields colliding with force. The challenger swings again, but the knight parries with precision, his movements fluid and controlled. The battle rages on with rapid strikes and blocks, the challenger realizing the true power of a purge knight. His eyes narrow, finally adjusting to the knight's speed and skill. Despite the overwhelming assault, he steadies himself, resolved to continue the fight no matter what. The armored knight suddenly shifts direction mid-air, catching the challenger off guard with a powerful shield bash. The challenger's eyes widen in alarm as the impact hits hard. Realizing the danger, he braces himself, thinking this is bad. Struggling to regain footing, the challenger resolves to create some distance between them. He lands and prepares to strike, but the knight counters swiftly, blocking the attack with his shield. A confident smirk crosses the knight's face as he tightens his grip on his weapon. The challenger launches a flurry of attacks, but the knight moves with uncanny precision, evading and parrying as if anticipating every move. The challenger's eyes narrow in realization. This reincarnation is extraordinarily skilled at predicting his actions. He feels something is off but presses on, determined to find an opening. The knight suddenly counters with a fierce strike, forcing the challenger to defend desperately. The knight taunts, asking if he can guess what the challenger is thinking, his expression sharp and confident as their blades clash once more. The knight reveals his secret, explaining his ability to completely predict every move. His eyes narrow with intensity as he declares his cheat is future prediction. Always 1 or 2 steps ahead, able to read his opponent like an open book. The challenger refuses to accept defeat, launching a desperate attack with a shout. The knight calmly counters, insisting there's always a way, forcing the challenger back with a powerful strike that leaves him gasping. The challenger struggles to understand how the knight can predict every move, questioning why his kick managed to land. The knight warns him not to push his luck as their blades clash relentlessly. The challenger considers the possibility that the knight's predictions only work within his line of sight. He recalls hiding his sword behind the shield. Yet the knight still dodged the thrust, confirming the knight anticipated the attack. They continue their fierce duel, each move scrutinized and countered with precision. He wonders if the knight's future prediction has a time limit. Can he foresee attacks even before they are decided? Doubt creeps in as he realizes too much information would overwhelm the knight's mind. He suspects there must be a boundary to these predictions. Determined, the knight resolves to discover the exact nature of this limit. The challenger swings his sword fiercely, but the knight warns him sharply that he's like an open book, easily read. The knight feints, swiftly redirecting a lethal thrust from the challenger's neck to his shoulder in a flash. The challenger is shocked, realizing the knight's ability to react instantly to every move. The knight acknowledges that his opponent reads all his moves and reacts optimally. But this predictability is a weakness. He vows to turn the situation around, launching a counterattack with renewed confidence. The knight acknowledges the challenger predicted his moves this far, so he must simply predict further. The duel intensifies as the knight launches a sweeping attack, moving with fluid precision, pushing the challenger back relentlessly. The challenger, sweating and tense, struggles to understand how the knight corners him despite his ability to predict every move. He questions the logic, unable to grasp how the knight gained the upper hand. The knight calmly reveals the limit of the challenger's foresight. 10 moves, he taunts him, declaring that is as far as his predictions go. The challenger snarls in frustration and charges forward defiantly. Suddenly, the challenger notices his shield lying on the ground. Realizing it wasn't thrown as an attack, shocked, he understands the knight's strategy was more than just prediction. It was a calculated trap, leaving him vulnerable as the knight advances. The knight lunges fiercely, swinging his sword down with deadly intent. The challenger, sweating and tense, realizes the earlier attack was a mere distraction. His eyes widen as he understands the trap closing in. The knight shouts that this is the end, pressing the assault relentlessly. The challenger snaps back, acknowledging the deception and the danger now upon him. The knight grabs the challenger's arm mid-swing, halting his attack. The challenger's gaze shifts in shock to a fallen figure nearby. The corpse from earlier, he gasps, breath shaky, as the weight of the situation sinks in. The knight strikes again, landing a heavy blow that forces a grunt from the challenger. The challenger's face twists with fury as he swings wildly, shouting a fierce curse. His eyes dart anxiously, realizing he won't be able to counterattack in time. The knight moves with calculated precision, closing the distance. The knight's swift strike narrowly misses as the challenger dodges just in time, disbelief flashing across his face. The knight apologizes quietly, expressing his desire to return Rai safely to his master. The challenger exhales in relief, grateful to have evaded the fatal blow but shaken by how close it came. The challenger's confident smile fades as the knight declares he will end this fight soon. The challenger notes the knight's cold, calculating demeanor has vanished. Yet his thoughts remain sharp. The knight draws his sword with a click, vowing to kill for sure this time. The challenger realizes the knight can see all his next moves, a terrifying insight that feels like his mind is being invaded. The knight calmly states he will stop the challenger's cheating now, as the challenger reacts in shock and confusion. Suddenly, the challenger screams in agony as a sword pierces through his head. His eye wide with terror, he struggles, bewildered by the unending recalculations of the future, and demands to know what the knight did to him. The knight approaches steadily, expression unreadable. The knight explains he used a mind-reading cheat to read the challenger's thoughts, allowing him to anticipate and counter every move. A chibi-style sequence shows their mental battle of prediction and mind-reading, with the knight forcing the challenger to constantly recalculate. Straining his brain beyond its limits, the challenger collapses, exhausted and defeated. The wounded man clutches his head, dizzy and overwhelmed. The knight calmly offers to help, raising his hand and performing a healing action. After a brief moment, he sighs in relief, confirming the job is done. The shattered remains of a stone figure lie scattered as the knight questions if his master is truly alive. He insists that Rai should be the one to face the enemy, but suddenly braces himself as something approaches. Shock floods the knight's face as he senses a dangerous bloodlust. The figure steps forward, revealing a scarred face, declaring the knight is not Rai. The scarred man demands to know what was done to Rai, his expression fierce and accusatory. The knight's eyes widen in fear and confusion, unable to answer the question. A scarred man demands to know where Rai Cornwell, his disciple, has been taken. He stares intently, ordering an answer. Rai looks shocked and uneasy, unable to respond immediately. The man insists again, his gaze unwavering. Rai desperately insists he is truly Rai. Confused and pleading, the man cuts him off, declaring it wrong. He points out that Rai's demeanor, aura, mannerisms, and speech do not match the real Rai's at all. She questions if the man truly disbelieves him, even with his current face. The man coldly suggests it wouldn't be strange if a reincarnator had the cheat ability of shapeshifting. He demands to know how long Rai will keep denying the truth. The man draws his sword with a sharp sound, warning Rai this is his last chance. He demands once more to know where Rai is, pressing for the truth with fierce intensity. He senses the truth without needing mind reading and warns that any attempt to lie or deceive will result in immediate punishment. Suddenly, the scarred man lunges forward, stabbing him sharply. Despite the attack, he clings to hope that his master truly cares for him and might understand his situation. He pleads silently, wondering if the master will listen to his true identity and spare his life. The scarred man demands he speak. The scarred man struggles to accept the impossible notion of a reincarnator soul inhabiting Rai's body. Yet the consistency of the knowledge about the Aldra rebellion and its aftermath, known only to Rai and himself, leaves no room for doubt. He asks if the other will believe him now. The two stand facing each other in tense silence. The scarred man looks intently, while the other's eyes widen in shock and realization, caught in the weight of the truth revealed. The young man calls out in disbelief, addressing the armored figure as master and questioning why the gods have cursed them with such a cruel fate. The armored figure stands silently, his back turned, as the young man's voice trembles with anguish. Suddenly, the armored figure commands him to draw his sword, calling him Second Rai. The young man freezes, shocked by the order and the weight behind the title. The young man hesitates, confused and desperate, asking the master what he means. The armored figure firmly declares he is indeed a reincarnator. The young man pleads, warning that killing him would also mean killing Rai, his true self. The armored figure remains silent, gripping his sword tightly. The armored figure reveals he has hunted many reincarnators to protect the future of the world, cutting down even innocent children with abnormal abilities. He acknowledges that these reincarnators must have had a desire to live, leaving the young man to absorb the harsh truth amid haunting memories of past victims. The armored figure insists he cannot make an exception for a favorite disciple or let personal feelings interfere. The young man, shocked, realizes he alone must face this harsh fate. He braces himself as the armored figure strikes fiercely. The young man desperately calls out for the armored figure to wait, but the attack continues relentlessly. He struggles to defend himself, overwhelmed by the weight and force of the blows. The armored figure's serious intent becomes clear as he relentlessly presses the attack, determined to kill Rai. The young man grits his teeth, barely managing to block the powerful strikes. Despite his exhaustion, the armored figure warns the young man that he has seriously underestimated him. The young man, still holding his shield, declares he doesn't want to hurt the armored figure, but the fight rages on, drawing the attention of a nearby observer. The young man suddenly reacts with alarm as the armored figure closes in, his shield raised defensively. He mutters a startled crap, just before the armored figure swings a massive sword down in a powerful strike. The young man anticipates the attack, realizing the armored figure is slashing toward his neck. A sharp focus sharpens his mind as he recognizes the ability Mind Read at play, sensing the incoming strike with precision. The young man narrowly dodges the lethal slash, sweat dripping as he evades the blow. The armored figure stands firm, watching him carefully, while the young man steels himself for the next move, eyes sharp and alert. The young man speaks, acknowledging the opponent's ability to predict his movements. The armored figure calmly replies that there is a way to counter it. The young man prepares for a charged shield attack, noting the attack is coming the same way as before, bracing for the clash. The young man struggles to keep up as the armored figure launches a relentless barrage of shield attacks. Swipe left, two-step shield thrust, strong attack and shield push. His mind races, overwhelmed by the overlapping thoughts from the opponent's mind-reading ability, unable to keep pace with the rapid assault. He realizes that trying to read the armored figure's mind and react at this speed is impossible, as a powerful shield strike crashes into him, sending him reeling with a pained cry. The armored figure's combos accelerate further, forcing the young man to brace behind his shield, sweat dripping as he struggles to block the increasing flurry of blows. He grits his teeth, determined not to falter despite the mounting pressure. Seizing an opening, the young man feints an attack, but the armored figure anticipates it, countering swiftly with a sword strike and a cold farewell, signaling the fight's dangerous escalation. Panic overwhelms him as he admits he can't survive, convinced he's going to die. He recalls losing his family to a reincarnator in childhood, and how Rai's life is ending after just 17 years. Since then, he's lived in constant turmoil, haunted by this fate. He questions whether Rai ever experienced happiness in those 17 years, blaming himself as the reincarnator responsible. Determined, he refuses to let Rai die like this, his resolve hardening despite the pain. The fight intensifies as the armored figure swings a heavy strike, forcing the young man to narrowly block. Their clash is fierce and relentless, the young man's eyes wide with strain as he counters with his sword. Amid the battle, he confesses his guilt for Rai's suffering caused by reincarnators, including himself, yet he firmly rejects the notion that Rai's life should end because of him, vowing to protect him no matter the cost. He vows to protect Rai until he no longer has to walk a path of carnage and blood, declaring this is the only way to atone for his sins. With fierce determination, he charges at the armored opponent, shield raised and sword ready. The clash is brutal as he strikes, but the armored foe blocks with skill that far surpasses his own. He realizes mind-reading won't work against such a veteran swordsman, whose experience and strength overwhelm him. Gritting his teeth, he acknowledges the gap in power and resolves to close it with stamina. He braces himself, ready to endure and fight harder despite the relentless assault. Focusing intently, he searches for an opening in the enemy's defense. As the armored figure advances with a menacing grin, the young man prepares to seize any chance to turn the tide. The young man slams his shield against the armored foe's sword, blocking a fierce strike. The armored opponent curses under his breath, frustrated by the defense. Seizing the moment, the young man lunges forward, knocking the armored figure off balance and forcing him to drop his weapon. He follows up with a powerful strike, cutting through the armor and eliciting a scream of pain from the opponent. The young man tightens his grip on his sword, preparing for the next attack as the armored foe reels. With a determined shout, the young man charges again, eyes blazing with resolve. The older warrior watches intently, his gaze sharp and calculating. The clash shakes the arena, dust and debris swirling around them as the battle intensifies. The young man drives his sword deep into the armored figure's chest, shattering a piece of his weapon. Both breathe heavily, sweat dripping as they lock eyes in tense exhaustion. The armored figure collapses, bloodied and weak, as the young man catches him, calling out desperately, "Master!" The arena around them cracks and crumbles from their fierce battle. The young man frantically holds the fallen warrior, who struggles to speak. He pulls out a healing item, hoping to mend the wounds, but the pain is overwhelming. Tears stream down the young man's face as he fights to keep his master alive. Kneeling beside the injured man, the young man apologizes, blaming himself entirely for the situation. He begs for death, overwhelmed by guilt and sorrow, tears falling as he pleads, "Kill me now." The young man screams no, desperate and tearful, refusing to accept the fate before him. The injured warrior, battered and scarred, warns that if the young man won't act, he will be killed instead. His eyes sharpen with deadly resolve as he reveals a secret, declaring he cannot let the young man live now that the truth is known. The older man explains that once the Purge Knights discover someone is a reincarnator, they become enemies who hunt them down relentlessly. This is their mission. The young man, tears streaming, acknowledges this grim reality, understanding that anyone who knows the truth must be eliminated to protect him. Despite the harsh words, the injured warrior insists he never wanted to hurt the young man, who clings to him in anguish. The older man admits he failed to guide him properly, apologizing deeply for his shortcomings. Memories flood back of peaceful days the older man wished for the young man, and how he couldn't stop him from pursuing vengeance. He calls himself pathetic for abandoning his duty and causing unforgivable harm to his master, apologizing once more as the young man holds his hand tightly. The injured man, tears mixing with sweat and blood, makes a heartfelt request to the other Rai, asking him to guide the young Rai so he won't be consumed by demons. The young Rai listens solemnly, and the other Rai nods, wiping his tears as he agrees to show the way. The young Rai clenches his fist, vowing to protect Rai no matter what. The injured man looks up with a faint, grateful smile, tears still streaming, as the young Rai embraces him tightly, expressing his thanks. Their hands remain clasped firmly as a radiant light shines down upon them. The young Rai, overwhelmed with emotion, looks down at the injured man lying on the ground, shocked and desperate. The injured man lies still, the light illuminating the somber scene. The scene shifts to a quiet morning outside a cave, sunlight breaking over distant mountains. A woman holding a cup of tea speaks softly, acknowledging the death of Knight Aslan. Her expression calm but reflective as the peaceful landscape contrasts with the recent loss. Sister Dina confirms she received a report from Knight Rai, who accompanied her on the mission. She solemnly reveals that Knight Aslan was fatally wounded in battle and has passed away. The woman quietly acknowledges the shift in the Purge Knights rankings following Knight Aslan's death. She lists the new order. 4th position is Leon Godwin, 5th is Howard Hooker, and 6th is Rai Cornwell. Sister Dina and the other woman discuss the rankings further. The 7th position is Noah Lowe, but they debate Leon's placement in 4th. The now vacant 8th position must be filled. Prompting a question about what to do next, the woman thoughtfully considers the situation. The woman decisively names Rai's Howell as the candidate for the vacant 8th position. Noting she seems easy to handle, Sister Dina agrees and asks about Rai's mentor. The other woman confirms her choice, and the two continue their discussion at the table under the peaceful sky. The woman points at a tray of cookies, declaring Leon and the lazy Noah are out of the question for mentorship. She states Howard is too kind to be effective, so Alfonso is also ruled out. The woman suggests either Knight Alfonso or Knight Rai, but a man with tousled hair insists Alfonso is a key combat asset and must be kept on standby. He concludes Rai will have to take the role after all. The woman turns away, leaving the decision in Sister Dina's hands. She smiles, counting on Dina, who nervously accepts and takes her leave. The woman softly utters Aslan's name, then asks if this is what he wanted too, her gaze lingering on the empty table. Alone beneath a gazebo, the woman reflects on having finally separated herself from Mai Rai, to die while being overseen by her beloved disciple. She looks up at the sky, wondering what will happen next as two birds soar overhead. A young man with bandages on his face stands in a quiet study, holding a feather quill. The peaceful countryside stretches outside the window. He sits at a desk, staring thoughtfully at the feather, his expression serious and contemplative. A sealed envelope is handed over, marking the completion of all Sir Aslan's remaining duties. A man on horseback rides through a sunlit forest path. Inside a bright room, a figure praises Rai for his good work. Rai stands silently as another man approaches. The newcomer warns Rai that he's been pushing himself too hard lately. Rai brightens and greets the man warmly as Master Alfonso. Alfonso explains that Rai took on the aftermath of Master Aslan's work and arranged his funeral. Since Aslan had no family, Rai listens quietly, the weight of the responsibility settling on him. Outside, leaves drift in the breeze. Rai stands alone by a grave, reflecting on being left behind. He recalls switching places with Rai and altering part of Rai's memory. The burden of loss and change heavy on his heart. The memories of the fight with Master and his death from injuries are revealed to have been altered. The truth is Master was already fatally wounded when Rai arrived. Though it was cruel, the memories were replaced to hide this from Rai. He struggles with the burden of keeping the secret. Standing before a grave, Rai questions what he meant to Master, wondering if he was a good disciple. He reflects on losing his father early and never knowing what he looked like. Despite this, he believes all the deception was for Rai's sake. Rai stands solemnly as leaves fall around him. A man tells Rai he thought of him as a father figure. Rai is overwhelmed, sweat and tears mixing as the weight of these emotions hits him. Under the rain, a man warns Rai not to catch a cold. Rai calls out to Alfonso-san, who speaks about the unfortunate death of old man Aslan. He explains the high mortality rate of their job and how they often have to see others off, standing together silently by the grave. Under the rain, a man holding an umbrella tells Rai he's not asking him to get used to sadness, but reminds him that being human means feeling sorrow when something tragic happens. He urges Rai not to lose that privilege. Rai, tearful and soaked, admits he thought he understood this. The man recalls long ago, when the old man took Rai as his disciple, and how he once asked the old man what his intention was. The man remembers teasing the old man, asking if he planned to start a family, to which the old man replied he just couldn't leave him alone. Rai's eyes well up with tears at this memory. The man assures Rai that if he thought of the old man as a father, the old man would have been happy, and that they were family even if neither realized it. Rai wipes his tears as the man expresses regret they hadn't reached out to each other sooner. Rai agrees quietly. The man then shifts the conversation, telling Rai he didn't come just to comfort him but because the saint is calling for him. Rai asks if a new heretic has appeared, and the man confirms, asking if Rai can handle it. She responds with determination, saying of course he can. The man smiles encouragingly as they stand together by the grave. Rai's expression darkens as he confesses there's something about the old man's death he can't shake off. The wounds on the master's body catch attention. Most of the Chaos Cult members wielded trident spears, yet the injuries were caused by a sword. The cut marks on the blade confirm this realization, shocking the observer who touches his face in disbelief. He questions if he was involved in the incident, his mind racing as leaves drift in the air. A cheerful bard sings about knights clad in night sky armor, urging them to continue protecting everyone, while the city streets stretch out below. Inside a lively tavern, patrons cheer and drink as a server carries mugs. A man with a fur-lined cloak leans forward, breath heavy, demanding to know what to do now that the Chaos Cult members have been eliminated. A mug slams down on the table, emphasizing the urgency. On a chessboard-like floor, two figures discuss the loss of 7 comrades. A hooded figure smiles confidently, deciding to meet the fallen directly, holding a small knight figurine as a symbol of the comrades lost. A man strolls through the city streets at night, hiccuping as he drinks from a bottle. He remarks on how nice the city is, brighter at night than the countryside and safe from sudden demon horses. He walks confidently, humming a tune. Suddenly, he stops, sensing something strange. He drops the bottle and looks up, alarmed by a pungent smell of grease and iron. His eyes widen as he notices a trail of dark liquid on the wall. The man turns to see a figure in a blood-stained dress, head engulfed in flames, looming ominously before him. He screams in terror as the fiery apparition approaches. The scene shifts to a fierce battle between 2 armored knights wielding weapons and shields, clashing with intense force. One knight reflects grimly that it has been a long time since their master died. The master fell in battle against a reincarnated enemy, suffering unexplained wounds after facing 7 reincarnators. Those injuries did not match the weapons used by the heretical cultists they were sent to exterminate. The wounds defied any known weapon, but one thought came to mind. That wound looked like it was inflicted by the narrator's own sword. The memory flashes back to a fierce clash where the narrator's sword strikes an opponent, causing surprise. The battle continues with intense swordplay, one knight asking if the other is lost in thought. The narrator recalls the day painfully, feeling as if their chest is being crushed by the memory. The narrator admits to being the sole survivor of that encounter. A comrade notices the narrator's unusual behavior and questions the hesitation. The narrator struggles internally, realizing that hesitation dulls the sword's edge. A stern knight commands to cast aside hesitation when swinging the sword, urging to hold back no longer. The knight demands to be shown the true meaning of being a purged knight, standing resolute with sword and shield. The 2 knights clash fiercely, their weapons striking with force. One knight, surprised, pauses mid-fight and then sheathes her sword. She thanks the other for the sparring match, expressing gratitude for the reminder of something important. The younger knight reflects on the advice to cast aside hesitation, asking about the last move. The senior knight explains he used the younger's momentum against him, teaching to redirect the opponent's movement and add a counterattack. He advises focusing on perfecting parrying with a shield, especially against stronger opponents with advantages in build, weight, and muscle mass. The younger knight, inspired, thanks his senior for the guidance and vows to work hard to become a purge knight like him. The narration reveals his name is Yahello, ranked 8th among purge knights, and urges him to do his best to protect the world's happiness from the reincarnated. A man asks if Rai and Rise were training here, then congratulates them and wonders if something happened. A woman urgently informs them that Special Agent Priest Curtis is calling them to the office. The young man steels himself, realizing this means a new mission. Inside a room, they learn about a fog that eats people, confirmed by eyewitness reports. Murders have been occurring nightly in the northern town of Capella, where a dense fog always appears at the crime scenes. The group discusses how bodies are found after the fog clears, with wounds as if mauled by an animal. They recall Sasaki Kazuma, a reincarnated enemy who controlled monsters as familiars, and suspect this case might be similar, a monster in the shape of fog. They question if there was no oracle from Stella this time, and debate if reincarnated individuals are involved. The young man suggests it's too early to rule out reincarnated involvement and proposes Alfonso-san might be the right person for the job. Alfonso cheerfully responds, surprising the others. The need for the strongest purge knight to intervene is urgent, but he is currently away. The young man reacts with concern, asked if something happened. A reminder surfaces about the dragon they captured last time, the one he defeated which has now escaped. Alfonso went with Lo to capture a replacement specimen, and the speaker requests the 2 of them, Rai and Rise, to handle the situation depending on how things unfold. Lo might be sent for support upon his return, with instructions to contact immediately if the situation worsens. Rai acknowledges the order. The seriousness of the mission is emphasized, Noting it is the first since the appointment, the speaker, Howl, urges them to do their best. Rai and Rise respond with determination, ready to face the challenge. Mounted on horseback, Rai and Rise ride swiftly through the forest path toward the town. The sound of hooves echoing. Rai reassures himself that everything will be fine as they head into the unknown danger ahead. The streets of northern town Capella lie eerily empty, a stark contrast to their usual bustling nature. One knight remarks on the unusual silence, while another agrees, both alert as they survey the deserted alleys. A child peeks nervously from a window, and the knights urge the restoration of normal daily life swiftly. They prepare to move deeper into the town, determined to bring back peace. As dusk approaches, the knights discuss their plan to patrol the town from sunset until dawn. One asks if they should continue until they encounter the night fog, and the other confirms. They walk with purpose through the quiet streets, ready for whatever the night may bring. The patrol continues under the night sky, the knights reflecting on the harshness of their duty. One doubts his ability to handle the burden despite knowing the reality. Their footsteps echo as they move through the town, tension and resolve mixing in the cold air. Suddenly, a sound catches their attention, breaking the silence. The knights stop, sensing something unusual as the night fog begins to form between the buildings. One recalls hearing about the fog from a friend in the Inquisition, explaining the two conditions needed for it to appear. The ground must cool rapidly after being warmed all day, and the air must hold a large amount of moisture. The fog swirls ominously around them, signaling the start of a dangerous night. One knight recalls the recent weather, prompting the other to confirm it perfectly matches the conditions. They realize the swirling mist around them is the dreaded fog that devours people, encircling the town ominously. The fog thickens, obscuring their vision completely. One knight admits he can't see anything inside it, while the other worries that waiting like this will leave them vulnerable. They acknowledge the fog's presence is a serious disadvantage, though one tries to argue otherwise. The armored knight urges his companion, reminding him he's not weak enough to be defeated by this fog alone. Suddenly, the fog lashes out like a whip, forcing them to defend themselves fiercely. The tension rises as they brace for an attack. The knights prepare for battle as the fog twists and strikes unpredictably. One calls out a warning to his comrade, urging caution. The other notes the fight ahead won't be easy, and despite the poor visibility, they steel themselves for the challenge. A knight recalls the importance of training with his senpai, emphasizing sharpening other senses to detect the enemy in dark battles. He senses a presence nearby and calls out, questioning if it's Rise. The knight suddenly feels pain, a sharp strike hitting him. He reacts quickly, swinging his spear with force as a mysterious, smoky tendril moves through the air. The knight shouts a battle cry and strikes again. Hitting his target, he urges himself to deliver one more strike, preparing to finish the fight. As he charges for the finishing blow, the knight is shocked by an overwhelming presence approaching. He realizes this presence is something unexpected and alarming as he rushes forward. A commanding voice orders to stop and not chase the enemy, startling the knight who is about to pursue. Suddenly, an explosion erupts, throwing them back violently. The knight looks up in shock, realizing the fog that had obscured everything has vanished, revealing a glowing, mysterious flame floating in the air. The knight questions why he was stopped, lamenting how close he was to finishing the fight. The other knight, calm and serious, tells him to inspect his shield closely. Shock floods the first knight's face as he notices fresh scratches on the shield's surface. The second knight confirms his suspicions with a pointed gesture, implying something sinister is at play. The second knight explains that just as the first was about to strike the final blow, he sensed multiple presences nearby. The first knight turns, alarmed, as the other confirms they are not alone. The scene ends with the two standing in a dark alley, the weight of unseen threats pressing down on them. The true identity of the mysterious fog is revealed to be a swarm of creatures. Two knights decide to follow the blood trail, hoping it will lead them to the creature's lair. As they pursue the trail, a sudden scream echoes from the alley. Alarmed, the knights rush forward, one calling out to his senpai, urging haste and asking what's wrong. They arrive to find a massive, fallen creature. One knight coughs weakly, while the others stand over the beast's broken form. They confirm the creature is a dragon. The knights discuss the dragon, noting it looks very different from those seen at the training grounds. One explains dragons are what reincarnated beings transform into after failing to become human. The other asks if Rise has seen many dragons before, acknowledging her limited experience. A woman explains that when a human reincarnates, a dissonance between mind and body transforms them into a creature resembling their previous form. The armored knight reacts with disbelief but senses something is wrong this time. A companion calls out to him, seeking his attention. The knights discuss that dragons don't act in groups, even if their base creature is a pack animal. One knight states there are two reasons for this. The first is that dragons are feral and lack reason, indiscriminately hunting without a leader. The second reason is left unspoken. The armored knight notes dragons never appear in numbers large enough to form a swarm, yet earlier he sensed at least 3. He points out these dragons all look exactly the same, calling it an abnormal situation. Night falls over a quiet church as torches burn outside. A man raises his hand in greeting, while a woman lies awake in bed, staring toward a window, disturbed by the unfolding events. A woman lies awake in bed, her eyes wide open before she closes them again. The sun rises over a quiet town. Nearby, townsfolk chat over drinks, discussing how the man-eating fog was actually dragons and asking if the Purge Knights took them down. One person cautions not to get hopes up since the dragons were only defeated yesterday. Another encourages having a drink to lift spirits, and a woman ties her hair back, preparing for the day. She agrees to do her best, while another quietly cheers her on. A nun greets a young knight, Howl, who has just woken up. She offers to show him the way to the dining hall where Cornwall is. The nun and her companions share smiles as Howl heads off. In the dining hall, Howl apologizes for being late, and Cornwall asks if he slept well. Howl expresses surprise at how soundly he slept, and Cornwall remarks that he seems to have regained his strength. Howl marvels at the food, calling it Capella's cuisine. They agree to have a planning meeting after eating, and Howl enjoys the meal, declaring it delicious. They begin by addressing the recent incident, with one suggesting it was no accident but a dragon swarm controlled by someone. He speculates this controller is a reincarnated individual with the power to command aberrant beings. The woman agrees, adding that the unnatural fog likely relates to this ability as well. The man proposes proceeding with that assumption and presents a map listing all the locations in Capella where the man-eating fog appeared. The woman studies the map, noting the sites are scattered with no clear pattern, all occurring in back alleys. She wonders why the fog moves around so much, her expression turning serious. They consider that the reincarnated controller is constantly shifting their base, prompting the man to reveal he contacted the town hall to check for residents with suspicious movements, like moving houses multiple times recently. However, no such cases were found. The woman questions if there is a connection between the scattered sites and the fog's characteristics, warning that without it, the theory of someone controlling the fog falls apart. They conclude that if someone is controlling the fog, they must have a hidden base somewhere, as the fog's movements don't resemble teleportation. The woman realizes the most likely scenario is a unique route through back alleys used to move around unseen. She acknowledges this possibility, and the man looks on thoughtfully as they continue to analyze the map. The woman insists they must watch for suspicious passages and investigate them. The man agrees and suggests splitting up to question the townspeople. They decide to regroup at the church at noon, both affirming the plan. A knight walks through the lively town market, receiving thanks from an elderly woman for protecting the town. She urges everyone to avoid going out at night. The knight reflects on the town's usual liveliness. Suddenly, a child bumps into the knight, prompting concern and a quick apology. The child excitedly asks if the knight is really a knight, recalling how her mother said the knight defeated bad guys. The knight recognizes the child as the girl from earlier. The girl beams, introducing herself as Alina and proudly says she's no longer afraid to go outside, crediting the knight. Alina presents a wrapped gift made with her mother as thanks for protecting the town. The knight gratefully accepts it, touched by the gesture. Watching the happy townsfolk, the knight vows to protect their smiles, refusing to be discouraged and determined to grow stronger. A woman thanks the knight warmly for her protection, while cautioning her daughter Irina not to wander too far. The girl calls out to her mother, and the knight reassures them she is glad to help. The woman asks the knight to advise townsfolk to avoid going out at night a little longer, as the situation is not fully resolved. The mother comforts her daughter, who pleads to see the twinkly lights soon, but the woman says they must wait. The knight, curious, asks what these twinkly lights are. The woman explains they are the streetlights, and her daughter loves the town's night view, often seeing it with her on the way back from shopping. The knight finds this lovely and the woman offers to take her to a plaza with a good view. The knight agrees, thinking seeing the town's layout might help identify a route. From the plaza, the knight and woman admire the beautiful townscape framed by mountains and water. The knight spots a river, and the woman explains it's a canal built long ago, a notable landmark. The knight ponders the canal thoughtfully. The knight examines the canal flowing through the town's center, noticing branches extending from it. She politely asks the woman how she can learn more about the town's waterways and where to find information about them. A church stands quietly under the sky. Inside, a knight pulls back a cloth covering a table and declares this is the place. He announces his return to his senior with determination. The knight is welcomed back by a woman in armor who offers him a package from the townspeople. He asks about it, and she suggests sharing information while eating. The knight reveals he has found something important and points to a map, declaring the travel route is through the sewers. Continued. The knight takes a small snack from the package as they prepare to discuss their findings. The knight explains he reached the same conclusion after investigating the attack sites and noticing unusual drainage ditches. He visited the city office to inquire about the sewer system. A man explains that the previous management company withdrew, and the new one hasn't started work or moved in yet due to some issues. The knight and the woman discuss how the sewers currently fall outside anyone's jurisdiction. He points to a location on the map, saying the most likely hiding place for the reincarnated is here, the manager's residence. She agrees it's a perfect base and suggests they head out after finishing their snacks. The dark sewer tunnel stretches ahead, water flowing steadily beneath a stone archway. A flickering torch illuminates the damp walls, casting eerie shadows into the depths. Inside the tunnel, a determined knight grips a torch tightly, vowing to finish the enemy this time. Strange, multi-eyed serpentine creatures stir nearby, sniffing the air as the knight approaches. A sinister voice welcomes the knight, acknowledging their arrival at last. The knight steps forward, torch raised, facing a grinning figure cloaked in a hood adorned with shells and beads. The figure declares they have been waiting, their smile wide and unsettling as the knight prepares for the confrontation ahead. Two knights carry torches as they walk along a narrow sewer path. One knight, holding a staff, declares the reincarnated who can control dragons is likely waiting ahead, specifically in the superintendent's residence within the sewers. The tunnel stretches ominously before them, water flowing beneath the stone archway. The knights continue down the dark sewer, one gripping a torch tightly, questioning if a reincarnated could really be hiding in such a place. The other knight looks tense, sweat forming as a sudden rustling noise catches their attention. A rat darts out from the shadows, startling the knight holding the torch. She apologizes for being jumpy, while the other knight asks if something is wrong. They keep moving cautiously, the torchlight flickering against the damp walls. The armored knight advises not to let their guard down, reassuring the nervous companion who agrees. They both acknowledge the unnerving silence surrounding them, the quietness feeling too eerie as they press onward deeper into the sewer's darkness. Two knights walk cautiously through the sewer tunnel, one holding a torch. Suddenly, one notices a light ahead and declares there must be someone there. The candles along the path still look fresh, confirming their suspicion. The knights decide to advance using the lights as a guide, preparing to fight at any moment. One knight drops a wooden torch into the water, creating a splash. The torch sinks into the water, sending ripples and bubbles. One knight calls out excitedly, alerting the other to something ahead. They continue moving along the lit path. The knights spot a light on the lower floor and wonder if it marks the entrance to the residential area. One orders the other to proceed while they check the surroundings, cautioning to be careful. One knight climbs down a stairwell while the other stands guard above. The lower knight reports no pursuers behind them. The upper knight agrees and orders a swift run through this section. They prepare to enter a dark tunnel, affirming their top priority is to hunt down the reincarnated. Both knights respond in agreement and charge forward into the shadowy passage. Suddenly, the grate on the wall rattles, catching one knight's attention with growing alarm. The noise intensifies as something approaches rapidly. A monstrous three-headed creature bursts through the grate, roaring fiercely. The knights immediately sprint away, shield raised and sword drawn, fleeing the sudden threat. The knights sprint through the tunnel, but the exit glows far ahead, too distant to reach quickly. The monstrous three-headed creature roars fiercely as it closes in behind them. One knight curses, realizing they are trapped with no easy escape. The knights quickly devise a plan to slip past the creature's flanks. One orders the other not to flinch, urging to use the enemy's momentum against it. The knight nods in understanding and prepares to act. The knight skillfully strikes the creature, using its own force to their advantage. The beast staggers from the hit, and the other knight cheers that they succeeded. They seize the moment to press forward, ready to make their next move. Suddenly, another creature lunges at them, catching one knight by surprise. He calls out to his companion, but the other assures him he's fine despite the attack. Alarmed, they realize more of the monstrous foes are approaching, counting how many are closing in on them. Dragons close in fiercely as the knight braces for battle, thinking that even if he defeats these dragons, he'll face the reincarnated enemy ahead completely exhausted. He resolves to fight with every advantage he can muster, uncertain of the enemy's true nature. Catching his breath, the knight commands that Senpai must go first, urging Rise to move ahead. Rise is called forward with a firm order to go on. The knight reminds Rise that the people of the town are counting on him to take out the reincarnated foe, With a determined look, Rise accepts the responsibility, telling the knight he'll leave this task to him. As Rise charges forward to confront the enemy, the other knight shouts a desperate warning to not die. Rise swings his sword with fierce resolve, launching into the fight against the reincarnated threat. The knight clenches her fist, vowing not to let any scum block her path. She shouts a fierce challenge, declaring herself Purge Knight Rise Howl and promising to cut down all enemies. She charges forward, shield raised, sword ready, confronting a monstrous foe with sharp teeth. She rushes headlong at the beast, swinging her sword with swift, repeated strikes. The knight grits her teeth, shouting a battle cry to push herself onward, refusing to back down despite the danger. As she attacks, she realizes ordinary weapons won't pierce the creature's thick scales. Her eyes narrow in determination as she deduces the weak point. The eyes, she prepares to aim precisely where the armor is weakest. With a powerful thrust, she strikes at the creature's eye, but the weapon gets stuck in the bone. Frustration flashes across her face as she struggles to free her blade. Knowing this is only the first enemy she must overcome, the knight faces the monstrous creature, her spear poised as its jaws snap dangerously close. Blood splatters near her eye, but she refuses to yield, recalling the faces of those she protects. She clenches her teeth, determined not to retreat no matter the odds. She dashes forward, gripping her spear tightly. The beast groans in pain as her weapon pierces its mouth. She shouts in surprise and effort, swinging her shield fiercely to strike the creature's head. The monster reels from the blow, its jaws snapping wildly. The knight leaps back, raising her shield to block a massive attack. The creature lunges, but she counters with a powerful strike that smashes its jaw. The monster staggers, but its eyes gleam with fury. Sweat and blood mix on her face as she braces for the next move. The beast lashes out again, forcing her to dodge desperately. She falls but quickly pushes herself up, shouting that she won't give up. The creature's claw slashes through the air, inches from her, as she prepares to fight on with unwavering resolve. She cries out as the beast bites her shoulder, but she swiftly grabs the edge of a nearby structure to steady herself. Launching upward, she swings her spear with a clang against the creature's jaws. With a powerful kick, she knocks the monster back, forcing it to open its mouth wide. She leaps, spear poised to strike again. Holding her shield firmly, she shouts that she's not finished yet. The beast lunges forward, jaws agape, but she braces herself for the next clash. They collide with a fierce impact, echoing through the tunnel. The knight pushes forward, relentless. The battle moves deeper into a vast, unfamiliar building. She surveys the strange, sprawling layout, noting its odd design. The knight cautiously advances through long corridors and shadowed hallways, shield raised and spear ready. Suddenly, she finds a door and grasps the handle. Opening it reveals a bright, flower-filled field outside. As the door creaks open, a figure stands waiting in the sunlight beyond the threshold, beckoning her forward. The knight steps into a strange, flower-filled field and immediately questions the reality, calling it a hallucination. He notes that such a place shouldn't exist above ground in the city. As he claps his hands, a figure appears, smiling and saying they're glad to finally meet. The knight reacts with surprise, gripping his shield tightly. The newcomer reveals they expected the knight and another to arrive here. The knight turns sharply, sword ready, but the figure calmly asks if they startled him. The knight begins to speak, but the figure interrupts, standing confidently on a raised platform. The figure declares the knight as the reincarnated. Confirming their identity with a knowing smile, the knight stands firm in the field, facing the hooded figure who watches from above, the wind stirring the grass and a single leaf drifting down between them.